Marcy works as an aide to Senator John McGlory. The senator is on the campaign trail and is trying to find additional votes, including among Irish voters. However, his ratings are dropping and the team decides they need more support from the Irish diaspora. They send Marcy to the small Irish town of Ballinagall, where the senator's roots supposedly come from, to find his relatives and win the sympathy of the locals. Marcy flies to Ireland, a complete contrast to her hectic life in America. She is used to a busy schedule, constant calls, emails and meetings, but she encounters a completely different pace of life when she arrives in Ballinagall. The village seems old-fashioned to her, with narrow streets, small houses, and friendly residents who are very curious about newcomers. The atmosphere of the village seems foreign to Marcy, and she feels a certain irritation at the slowness of the locals and their unhurried way of life. In this town she encounters many colorful characters. One of them is Sean, a local resident who works at the hotel where Marcy is staying. From the very beginning, Sean attracts her attention with his casual manner of communication and Irish charm. However, slight arguments and misunderstandings immediately arise between them, as Marcy is initially skeptical of the place and the people who live there. The locals hold a matchmaker festival, an annual event where singles from all over Ireland come together in hopes of finding a mate. Marcy finds herself involved in the process, though at first she treats it with disdain. She thinks it's just a local pastime that has nothing to do with her serious task of finding the senator's relatives. But as she immerses herself in the holiday atmosphere, her skepticism begins to fade. Marcy meets several characters who turn out to be festival goers. Among them is Dermot, a professional matchmaker who has been helping people find a couple for many years. He is a very colorful figure with a lively temperament and many stories of how he has brought people together. Despite his somewhat gruff appearance, he turns out to be quite a wise and insightful man, which makes Marcy sympathetic. In parallel to her mission, Marcy attempts a mission to find possible relatives of the senator, but encounters many obstacles. The archives and documents she manages to find are either too old or so confusing that she cannot pinpoint exactly who the senator's relatives might be. Her attempts to make contact with the locals to learn more are also not always successful. Some residents simply don't want to help an outsider, while others are too busy with their own affairs. However, the more time Marcy spends in Ireland, the more she becomes imbued with the spirit of the place. In the course of her search, she begins to communicate more and more with Sean. Their relationship gradually changes from mutual irritation to understanding and even sympathy. Sean shows her aspects of Ireland that she had not noticed before. Together they visit picturesque places of nature, old Irish sites, and Marcy gradually begins to see the beauty of this country, its traditions and culture. Marcy and Sean go on a picnic on the coast. At this point, a conversation takes place between them that reveals their inner feelings. Sean shares his thoughts about how important it is not to forget about his roots, his family, his origins. Marcy, on the other hand, talks about her life in America, how she is used to career goals, to the struggle for success, but suddenly realizes that something important is eluding her in this race. This dialogue becomes a turning point in their relationship, as well as in her perception of life in general. In parallel with the development of her personal relationship, her search for the senator's relatives continues, but it proves fruitless. At some point, Marcy begins to consider that perhaps this whole mission was initially futile. Her efforts to improve McGlory's campaign in Ireland seem increasingly pointless to her. Her thoughts are now focused less on her work and more on the personal discoveries and relationships she has built during her time in this village. The final part of the movie focuses on the denouement of the relationship between Marcy and Sean. In one scene, they find themselves on an evening stroll through the village where local couples, festival attendees, meet. The atmosphere around them is filled with joy and love, and Marcy realizes that she too has begun to change her outlook on life. Despite all the difficulties and cultural differences, her heart has opened up to something new. This evening becomes symbolic for her. She realizes that her journey to Ireland was not only a search for political allies, but also a search for herself. Ultimately, Marcy is faced with the choice of returning to America to her old life or staying in Ireland to get to know herself and her desires more deeply. In the final minutes of the film, she realizes that her job and career ambitions cannot be her only purpose in life. Sean, who has stayed by her side all this time, offers her to stay, hinting at the possibility of continuing their relationship. Marcy finds the strength to leave the past behind and take a step towards a new life. Ireland has become for her not just a place of business trip, but a symbol of her personal growth and change. Marcy's story, her inner conflict and its resolution, and her interaction with Sean show how an unexpected journey can change a person, opening their eyes to simple but important things like love, friendship, and the meaning of life.